Hey, let's learn how to change the pickups in a guitar. This information will apply to most guitars. For those that are interested in this guitar, why I'm swapping the pickups, and what I'm installing, let me explain. This is a Fender Ventera 60s Mustang, which was made in Mexico a few years ago. I really like the feel of the neck, its weight, and its scale. I intend to use it mostly in the studio for recording music and videos like this. The stock pickups are okay, but there are better pickups available. I want to install high-quality, noise-free pickups to upgrade the sound quality and tone of the guitar. After much research, I decided to get Fralin Split Blade pickup for Mustang. These are made to order in Richmond, Virginia. There's several options to select when ordering them. I ordered a set with a vintage output, parchment color, and a round radius to match the guitar's vintage style 7 1/4 radius fretboard. I'm very excited to try them out. Also, this video isn't sponsored by Fralin, but consider supporting this channel by subscribing. Here's a list of items you'll need to perform this upgrade. A guitar, a set of pickups designed for the guitar, a Phillips screwdriver, a soldering iron, solder, wire strippers, an adjustable crescent wrench, a wiring diagram specific to the guitar, a new set of guitar strings, a soldering iron holder, a soldering iron tip cleaner, a new potentiometer, a new output jack, an Allen key or hex wrench, wire snips, needle nose pliers or a multi-tool, a ruler that measures from its edge. A quick note, you don't need to change the potentiometer or output jack. I'm choosing to do this for a few reasons. Since I'm opening the guitar and rewiring the pickups, this is a convenient time to upgrade other components. Since the volume control is the most used component in the circuit, I want to install a high-quality potentiometer for durability and longevity. By changing the resistance of the pot, you can also alter the tone of the pickups. I'm trying this 300K vintage taper pot from CTS, which was recommended to me by the people at Fralin. They also said just changing the volume and leaving the tone pot would make all the difference. Therefore, I'm leaving the stock tone pot and resistor in place. The output jack also gets a lot of use, and it's worth upgrading. I'm going to install this output jack from Pure Tone, which has multiple contact points and is well made. This should also help eliminate crackle caused by a loose connection at the output jack. Find a clean working surface. Lay the guitar down on a towel or a protective mat. A couple of notes before we get started. At the end of this video, I'll show a comparison between the stock pickups and the Fralin pickups. Because I want to record this comparison, I want to limit the number of variables. Since strings can alter tone, I'm going to save the existing strings and reinstall them later to minimize variables. I could install a new set of strings to test each set of pickups, but I'm going to reuse these strings instead. I'm going to unwind the strings at the tuners and carefully remove them. Otherwise, you'll want to cut the strings using wire cutters and remove them. Use an appropriately sized Phillips screwdriver to unscrew the pickguard. Since I'm swapping the volume pot and the output jack, I'm going to unscrew the control plate as well. Pro tip, use a small bowl to keep track of the screws and other parts. Unscrew the pickguard from the guitar. If your knobs have set screws, like those on this guitar, use a hex wrench to unscrew the knob on the volume pot just enough so it slides off the pot. Carefully flip the pickguard onto a towel or rag. Pro tip, take several photos of all wiring and components for reference. Using the photos as reference, you could install the new pickups exactly as the old ones were installed. However, using a wiring diagram in addition to the photos will make this go much smoother. Fralin has several wiring diagrams on their site, and I'm going to use the one specific to the Mustang. For the uninitiated, let's quickly discuss soldering. If you have never soldered before, don't be intimidated. Just be patient and practice before working on your guitar. Also, I'm using a soldering station, but you can use a basic soldering iron. The main benefit of using a station is that you can adjust the temperature of the iron, whereas a basic soldering iron will essentially operate at maximum temperature. If you're operating at maximum temperature, be careful not to damage components. The soldering iron can burn you, so be very careful when handling it. Place it in the holder when you're not using it. Also, the wires and components will get hot and can burn you. Use needle nose pliers to hold things in place while soldering. It's good habit to clean the tip of the iron after each use. If you don't have a tip cleaner, you can use a damp sponge. Lastly, don't breathe in the smoke from melting solder. Turn on a fan and open a window if possible. Plug the iron in and turn it on if it has a switch. Wait for it to warm up. Tin the tip of the iron using a touch of solder. It should be a clean silver color. To keep track of things, I'm going to replace one component at a time. Place the tip of the soldering iron onto a wire terminal and wait for it to warm up. Notice when the solder turns to liquid. With the soldering iron in place, carefully remove the wire and then remove the iron from the terminal. Wait for the connection to cool. Repeat this process on the other lead coming from the pickup to the switch. Grab the new pickup. Screw the pickup into position on the pickguard. On these noise-free pickups, you'll notice that there's an additional wire coming from the pickup. Our wiring diagram doesn't show this. According to the guys at Fralin, they advised us to solder all blue leads to ground. We'll come back to this. The wires will likely be much longer than necessary for your guitar. Let's trim the 2 lead cables back so there's just a bit of slack between the pickup and the switch. I'm going to leave the blue wire long for now. Use the wire strippers to make this cut. Use the wire strippers to remove a 1/4 inch or so from the jacket at the end of the cable. Insert the end of the wire into the terminal on the switch and hold it in place with one hand. With the other hand, place the tip of the soldering iron on the terminal of the switch. Allow it to warm up. Feed the end of the solder to the terminal. It should start to melt when it's hot enough. Slowly feed solder into the joint until it's covered. Remove the soldering iron, allow the joint to cool for several seconds. Lastly, using wire snips, cut off any excess wire beyond the connection and make sure there's no stray wires. Let's repeat this process on the other wire for this pickup. I'm going to leave the blue cables for last. Repeat this process on the other pickup. Desolder the cables from the volume pot and the output jack. Using an adjustable crescent wrench, remove the nut on the pot and the output jack. Grab the new pot and jack and insert them into the control plate in the same location. Use a wrench to tighten the nuts on the outside of the plate. Let's reinstall the knob onto the pot. Rotate the pot all the way clockwise. Note, I'm using a brass sleeve for the shaft because this knob has a set screw and the pot has a split shaft. The sleeve will protect the shaft from getting damaged by the set screw. Position the knob's dot so it's at its maximum location. Tighten the set screw with a hex wrench. Solder the cables onto the terminals according to the wiring diagram and reference photos. The wiring on the output jack is slightly different in the wiring diagram than the original wiring in the guitar. It didn't have a ground wire, but I'm going to add one according to the diagram. On the volume pot, bend the left terminal so it touches the back of the volume pot. Solder it to the back of the pot. Solder the ground wires to the back of the volume pot. This includes the ground wire from the output jack. The blue wires aren't on the diagram because this diagram shows single coil pickups and the one I'm using are noise-free pickups which have an additional blue wire. Per Fralin's instructions, we want these to go to ground. Looking at the wiring diagram, black wires are ground. Ideally, the blue wires would go to the back of the volume pot, but the wires aren't long enough, so I'm connecting them to ground on the pickup switches. Trim the blue cables so there's just a bit of slack. Strip back 3/8 or so from the jacket on each wire. Solder each blue wire to a terminal with black wires. Turn off the soldering iron when finished. At this point, our circuit should be complete and we can test it. Plug an instrument cable into the guitar and the other end into an amp. Keep the volume on the amp low. Increase the volume on the guitar. Set the pickup selector to the neck pickup. Tap the magnet of the pickup with a screwdriver. You should hear an audible noise from the amp. Flip the pickup selector to the bridge pickup and repeat this test. You should hear noise coming from the amp. Carefully position the pickguard and control plate into place. Screw the pickguard and control plate to the guitar. Install new strings on the guitar. In my case, I'm installing the old strings. Next, we need to adjust the height of the pickups. Check the manufacturer's specs for the appropriate heights. Lindy Fralin recommends an 1/8 inch on the low E or bass side and a 1/16 of an inch on the high E or treble side. Fret the guitar at the last fret. Measure from the bottom of the string to the top of the magnet. Adjust the screws on each side of the pickup to the recommended height. Play the guitar. You can adjust the height of the pickups to suit your taste. I recorded a comparison between the old pickups and the new ones. This guitar was properly set up before I installed the pickups and after. And I'm reusing the strings, so that's not a variable in the difference in tone. I'm going straight into a Fender Deluxe Reverb amp into the normal channel. I'm recording the amp with a Sennheiser E609, which is positioned off-center of the cone. You'll hear the same piece 4 times, one with each set of pickups played with a pick and without. Here's the stock pickups. Now here's the Fralin Pickups. Here's the stock pickups again. And here's the Fralin pickups again. Hey, consider subscribing if you learned something. Thanks for watching. Peace.